He and Fayed were reunited. Both had achieved what they wanted, vengeance. But in the process, two unscrupulous men had exposed how British politics had been taken over by the power of money.
We both felt time had come for us to get together again and put all the things behind us, you know, which friendship. If the Israeli and the Palestinian can make peace, then the Egyptian and Laurent and Tiny Rowland can do, isn't it?
They both have ended up by holding up a mirror, or if you like, a magnifying glass to our society and really showing us things that the rest of us didn't know were going on. Mohammed and Tiny were both people who were capable of corruption, but paid people money, but they ended up telling great truths about our society. They are truth tellers.
30 years before, both Rowland and Goldsmith had been part of the Clermont Set, a group of reckless financial gamblers who had helped awaken the markets and begin their rise to power. But now, both of them, in their different ways, found themselves fighting against the force that they had helped create. When Goldsmith formed the Referendum Party, at its core were many of his old gambling friends from the 60s. Even Jim Slater's son stood as a candidate. Jim Slater was Goldsmith's closest friend. Back in the 60s, the two of them had begun the asset stripping of British industry. And John Aspinall, who had founded the club, also stood as a candidate. He and Goldsmith were trying to recreate a golden age when nations were powerful, not the markets.
The past gave him inspiration, not the future. He was frightened of the future, very frightened of the future, of the world, including England, very, very, very concerned and bemused, I would say, bewildered by the present, and his inspiration for what was correct and adjusted always came from the past.
Don't wake up on the 2nd of May to the same old Tories back again. Wake up on the 2nd of May to a new Labour government and new hope and new opportunity for Britain.
There it is, 10 o'clock, and we say Tony Blair is to be Prime Minister and a landslide is likely.
Martin Bell. Independent. 29,300.
Mellor David, Conservative Party, 17,108.
I would like to say that 1,500 votes is a derisory total. And we have shown tonight that the referendum party is dead in the water. And Sir James, you can get off back to Mexico knowing your attempt to buy the British political system has failed.
In May 1997, a Labour government was elected. But far from reasserting power over the financial markets, they did exactly the opposite. To reassure the city, Gordon Brown's first act as Chancellor was to give away the government's last instrument of economic power. He gave control over interest rates to the Bank of England. It was an admission by the Blair government that they couldn't control global economic forces, and there was no point in them trying.
What is called globalization is changing the whole nature of the nation state as power becomes more diffuse and borders more porous. Technological change is reducing the power and capacity of government to control its domestic economy free from external influence.
It would be totally dishonest of me or anyone to pretend that we can change conditions in a world market which alter the circumstances in which companies operate and trade. We can't do that.
The Labour government gave away its power and the markets rewarded them. Money did not flee from London as it had when previous Labour governments had been elected, and the boom continued. It has been the longest stock market boom this century. Many believe that because of deregulation, there is nothing to stop it continuing indefinitely. But there are others who are beginning to warn that all market booms come to an end, and that the global markets are becoming increasingly unstable. The question for politicians is, having given away so much power to control the markets, what happens when the bubble bursts?
I think the politicians have been put to sleep by the markets. I think if the politicians, particularly Labour politicians, delve deep enough into their psyches, they would admit that they are quite terrified by the power of the markets, by the extent to which these people are sitting on the top of a house of cards. Labour politicians know there is something a bit dodgy about this system, but the boom, the extent of the boom, the wealth it's created for parts of Britain, for the southeast of England and for London, and for a group of very vociferous, very powerful people, has actually lulled politicians into a false sense of security. What happens when the boom ends?
In 1997, James Goldsmith died. He had tried to stop the onrush of the markets and failed. And at his death, the business class who now dominate politics took him back as one of their own. And with them came the politicians who, in their different ways, had helped the market to take power. A year later, Tiny Rowland died. His funeral was secret, and no one knows where he is buried. The only remaining member of the tycoons from the Clermont set is Jim Slater. He still runs a business analysing the markets, and is fascinated, as he always was, by games of chance, even Monopoly.
It works out that Pentonville Road, Angel of Islington and Euston, they're the light blue sites on the left, give you 159% return and are the best in terms of arithmetical return. But the dark green sites, which people would think were better, Oxford Street, Bond Street and Regent Street, only give 101% return, so they're very bad. The next best site are the orange ones, which is Bow Street, Vine Street and Marlborough Street, and they give 141% return. But they are better than Pentonville Road, Euston Road and Angel of Islington, because there's an increased incidence of landing on them. You land on them more often. And the reason for that is there's a card in chance, go to jail, and there's a thing on the board, go to jail. And if you go to jail, you're past the blue sites and about to land on the orange ones. In addition to that, there's another card in chance, advance to Pall Mall, which does the same thing, it takes you past the blue sites. Another one, advance to Marylebone Station. There's another one, go back 3 spaces, which from one position lands you on Vine Street. So it's an overwhelming case for having the orange sites. Now, most people don't know that.